Welcome to the Living Ageless and Bold podcast. Each episode, I bring you amazing women who inspire, educate, and share their experiences and journeys along the way. So grab a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, find a cozy spot, and let's relax and have some fun hearing what can be accomplished after 55. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Living Ageless and Bold. I am so excited about today's guest because she is a naturopath. And for the people who've been listening for a while, you guys know I've been on a functional health journey. So I'm really excited about all of this. Allison McCune Davis, she's an author. I told you she's a naturopath, mom of 5. I keep interviewing these incredible women, 5, 6, 7 kids. It's amazing. But all while raising her kids, got into the entrepreneurial journey of natural health. And she has a new book, 60 is a Good Start, A Powerful Body, A Purposeful Life, and a Plan to Make It Happen. She advocates for reimagining life after 60 and inspires women to embrace aging as a time of opportunity, vitality, and purpose. So welcome, Allison.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Oh, and I'm 58, so I'm almost there.
Okay, good.
I keep hearing from the women that I interview that 60 is the best decade. Like
I'm thinking it is. I'll be 65 in December, and I really am thinking it is. After a shift.
Right. And that's why I did this podcast. It's just to bring like-minded women together to tell stories and journeys. And I'd love to hear how you got into the naturopath journey. And I'll share a little bit of my story because I just got into it a year ago. But it's something. It's something. I'm in.
Talk about a paradigm shift.
Yep. I have drank the Kool-Aid. I am 100% a believer.
Mm-hmm.
But for somebody like you, you've got 5 kids who are going to pediatricians. I mean, I'd love to hear how you got into this.
Yeah. Well, so I live in Oklahoma now, which is where I grew up. But, between those two times, I was in San Antonio, Texas for 8 years, college and then LA for 8 years. I was a TV producer. So that was just what I went to school for, film and TV and behind the scenes type stuff. And while I lived out there, I was 30. So this is a long time ago, over 3 decades. My father was a surgeon, first of all. So I grew up in a very, medical household, although I still think the whole Western world, certainly America, is that way anyway, or certainly was then. But that was, what I grew up in. And so I went out there and I had an issue. I had these recurring yeast infections. We're all girls, I'll just tell you. I was being interviewed by a guy the other day and I just thought I had an issue. But anyway, I was out there and my friend, an acquaintance in my apartment building said, "Oh, you have to go to my TCM doctor." And I just like, "What's that?" "Traditional Chinese medicine. He'll totally help you." I was like, okay, that's weird. My dad would probably flip, but let's try it. Why not? And so 6 weeks later, finally got in. He was super busy. And he, like the whole place, you walked in the office, there were all these bottles of herbs behind the counter. And then he did all this muscle testing. You've probably heard about that now, on all kinds of substances, whether they were environmental allergens, food allergens, all kinds of stuff. And basically he was like, "You've got to get off dairy and I want you to take these herbs." He said, "You're probably going to have to be off all dairy for a year. You may be able to bring it back in after that. Just, everybody's different. And then take these herbs." I don't even remember what they were, but I just thought, well, okay, this is, it's not a prescription. It's not an over the counter from the drugstore. This is new. It worked. I've never had one since. And I did reintroduce dairy. Now, in my last 20 years, I drink raw milk instead of that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But and I try to get good dairy. I don't eat a lot of dairy, but I'll have stuff with cheese on it. I mean, back then I realized I was eating dairy at every single meal. I was single, working. I'd drink, cereal and milk, or eat cereal and milk for breakfast, cheese and crackers, I realized I really did have a lot of it. So that was my first experience. And from there, it was just little by little, I was more and more, oh, what about this? Oh, what about that? And finally, I moved home, met my husband. We decided to move back here. We were both from here. And that was when I was 35. I had my first child at 37, and then 40, and then 42. Well, yeah, later than a lot. But so then at 42, 43, well, then we adopted the fourth and fifth at 46 and 50. Crazy. I was like, really? But anyway, but it was in my 40s that my health just started going down the drain, just in terms of, like, I was getting sick every 6 weeks. And, I had 3 little kids. And so I was just like, oh my God, what is going on? So at that point, that's when I went to my first naturopath doctor. Been going to him ever since, and just, doing all the tests, the blood tests, the poop tests, the urine tests, the hair follicle tests, everything, the saliva tests for hormones.
I was going to say, it's important to kind of explain, and because I've had a doctor of naturopathy on, we've talked about this a couple times, but, and all the doctors say, traditional doctors just don't have the time.
No, they don't do all those tests.
Yeah.
They might do a blood test.
They don't do that. That was when my first blood tests were, I don't know. I think he did 100. I mean, the reports came back like that, but that's what he said. You have this problem and we can mask it with medication,
right,
or we can figure it out. And that's where all those,
it's all about root cause. What is the root cause?
Exactly.
We're not, I always like to say, we're not deficient in anything synthetic. Well, any prescription is synthetic. So, and that's why anybody will tell you, even MD doctors, regular doctors, that, anything, all prescriptions have side effects. Maybe or maybe you won't see those side effects. Maybe they're going on, maybe they're not, who knows? Anyway, so, I just got very much into that, because I was just like, I've got to have energy. I don't care. I've got to go down this path and figure this out, figure out root causes and all of that. At that point, he was like, okay, you've got not enough good bacteria in your gut and too much bad. So we've got to get that balanced. And then my adrenals were shot. That was having 3 kids in a row. And my thyroid was an issue. So just all kinds of things.
Which is very common after childbirth.
Yes, very common.
Because I had something after that too.
Yes.
They tell you, oh, you don't know what having those babies does to your body.
True. Who knew?
Right.
And so, I mean, it was about a decade of that. And then I got, probably at about age 50, I just got to where I started teaching women and started doing classes online, in person, on just natural health in general. I had a supplement company that I partnered with, and I still use all those. And then I
want to ask you a question about that, because same thing, and I'll tell my story more, but you get the supplements, and my husband had cancer in April, and he is doing traditional. We have an oncologist. He's at Johns Hopkins. He's doing immunotherapy, and we were going to do some other stuff with our functional medicine doctor, but it was 300 supplements a day.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a friend of mine who works with an Indian woman, Indian doctor, and she said, people in the United States have gone overboard with the supplements.
There's definitely some truth to that.
So you are trained in this, you're certified in this, but don't you just pee it out? Like, do I really need, he prescribed, 50 to 75 a day, and I take it once a day, like 12, and that's it. And knock on wood, I'm good.
Yeah.
But
I certainly think everybody's different. You don't just pee it out. I mean, yeah, you pee it out, but it's also doing its work in you. So it's not like you're taking them. I mean, and I can't say this just across the board, because everybody's different. Who knows what everybody's taking? It is just, I always just say, it's a lifelong puzzle to figure out your health and what you need. And so, I've been doing this I've been taking supplements, oh my gosh, for 30 years probably, and I vary them and make changes. And sometimes I stop taking something to see how am I affected. Like I take 2 supplements for joint health, and several times, and I've been taking them for probably 10 years. Several times I've stopped taking them just to see. And about 10 days later, my joints start to hurt. My fingers, my feet, and sometimes my knees, mostly my hands and feet. And I'm like, well, I need to be taking those. You know what I'm saying? So
my husband has a torn meniscus, and our doctor gave him stuff for that. And then with all the cancer stuff, he had to stop taking everything before the surgery. And his knee was so bad. And he's like, oh my gosh, this really works. And as soon as he was okay, which is what I do love about the doctors that we're working with, they're fine with this, taking, the supplements and the functional. And, but yeah,
I'm glad because, for a long time and really still in a lot of circles, there's a real divide. I mean, traditional doctors think supplements are, quacks, the people that prescribe them or give them, they don't prescribe them, but, they just don't understand them. They didn't study that. Medical schools do not teach nutrition. They are just now starting to think about that. So it's just like, you go to hospitals and what kind of food are they serving the patients? I mean, it's pretty awful, like Jell-O and so it is just 2 different worlds that I hope are little by little coming together.
You said something which made so much sense, and it's so clear. You said it's a puzzle. And
it is.
What people don't realize is we're all a unique puzzle.
Yes.
And traditional medicine, this is what I found, and again, why I'm drinking the other Kool-Aid, across the board, like I went, I had a little bit of high cholesterol. My problem was blood sugar, which nobody could figure out. And my functional medicine doctor did. But I went to a cardiologist at the top, hospital system in our area. And the doctor literally put his hands on my knees and he said, I am so sorry. You're so sick. We have got to put you on a statin and pump me through this medicine. And I got so sick from the medicine. And then I'm talking to my husband who's on the same statin. And I'm like, but we're 2 different people. Like they just give everybody the same. It's $1 billion industry. And then I'm like, I got to see about this. So I convinced the other doctor to let me get a calcium score. I was a zero. And they are pumping me full of statins and drugs and this and that. And it's like,
it's terrible.
This is what we give people. And the endocrinologist, I said, wait a minute, what? They're like, well, you're diabetic. We're going to put you on insulin. That's the only way we can get your blood sugar down. And I had read a lot. And I'm like, my pancreas is fine. What? Won't insulin kill me? Like, is that not a bad thing? And they're like, oh, nobody ever asks us questions. Like, that's when I went.
Yeah, it's really awful. It's really awful, and Dr. Mark Hyman, hopefully you follow him on Instagram, and Gary Brecka. And in that book, one of the best books out recently is Good Energy by Casey and Callie Means.
Okay.
Do you know about that book?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh. That's an incredible book that just really breaks down, metabolic health. It's our cell health, right? And that's just, I really recommend that book a lot. It gets, kind of technical. I mean, she's a doctor, but, now she's gone to the other side.
Well, that's my doctor too. My doctor's an MD from Stanford. He ran medical colleges, and he's now.
When you look at the history of medicine in America, it's not very pretty.
No. And there's something that he said.
I know there's a place for it. My father was a doctor. My grandfather was a doctor. Right. My great grandfather on both sides were doctors. I mean, I respect doctors a lot. And so I sometimes sound like I don't, but I do.
Oh, but doctors just saved my husband's
their life-saving, their life-saving ability. But for just general health, no, you really have to look elsewhere, I think.
And take it into your own hands. And like you said, and going through the cancer stuff with my husband, we had to sit in a class. Now, he didn't take chemo, but chemo, they're just blasting everyone the same.
Oh, I know.
We're just going to blast you through poison and
it kills everything.
It kills everything.
It kills everything, not just cancer. It kills everything good. And to come back, and hopefully you survive. You hear so many stories of people that think their loved one died of chemo, not just the cancer.
So he's on immunotherapy, which is starting to go along the lines more of what we're talking about, where they actually take his blood and his tumor that he had. And, this is what you're looking for specifically. Go find this and erase it and take care of it.
I'll tell you the other guy, if I were you, I would look at, and I cannot remember his name, but he is the owner of the LA Times. He is a physician, I believe, from UCLA. He bought the LA Times recently, and he's been doing interviews called Cancer Decoded. And he's come up with some really big medical cancer cures is what he's saying. I'll have to look, but you could look up who owns the LA Times and then look up his stuff. He's really got new stuff that sounds amazing right now.
Okay. Yeah. It's interesting. People are getting more, and probably because of social media, we have more access to information.
Yeah. And we just see little blips of things and that causes us to go down the rabbit holes.
But I see with my daughter who's 25, she sees stuff on social and she's looking, and I'll even be using a product. She's like, Mom, you can't use that. That's so bad for you.
Oh, yeah.
And she actually got me on a much healthier kick.
Everything we put on our body, what are we cleaning our houses with? What is in our laundry room, under our kitchen sink, in our bathroom, our makeup, our skincare, lotion, toothpaste, all of those things. And, it takes a while, and it can sound overwhelming when you first, like you said, switch gears and try to do things natural. But all of that goes straight into our bloodstream because our skin is a sieve, and so everything's going into our body and affecting us. And so really, and then so much of that becomes what we call an endocrine disruptor. It's trying to it's clogging up cells that our hormones want to get to. So our hormones can't get to those cells as they should because they're clogged by all the synthetic junk and that we're swimming in, the toxins. And so we might be, and of course at this age, the 50 plus, we might have enough hormones, but our body can't hear them talking because we're so clogged up by all the synthetic junk out there.
So if somebody's listening or watching and it's like, ooh, Allison, this is really interesting. Where do you start? I know I interviewed supermodel Kim Alexis. We all remember her. Well, she's very into this right now. She's not a naturopath, but in terms of cleaning supplies and laundry, and we were talking about all of that. But you're right. It's overwhelming. Somebody's listening. You're like, oh, where do I start?
I know. You start looking in your house going, I remember when I did this.
Yeah.
It was probably 25 years ago. Maybe I started going, oh my gosh, is that bad for me? Is that shampoo bad for me? Is that toothpaste bad for me?
Right.
So it's just, baby steps. I'm all about baby steps,
So what's step one? Like somebody's listening right now and is like, I get this. I want to do something. I want to start fixing me. Where do you start?
Honestly, I will say that's kind of one of the reasons I love this company I'm partnered with for 14 years because they are a company that has everything. They have all the supplements, the skincare, the cleaning products. And so, I'm not saying I use everything from there, but boy, I do use a lot. I get a monthly order every month and have for a long time. And so that's kind of my foundation. And then, I strike out like here and there when I find other really neat things. But
and what's the company? And guys, there's no money here. We're not selling it. It's just
Young Living.
Curious too.
It's called Young Living. Have you heard of them?
I have not. No.
Young Living. They've been around for 30 years, and that's over 30 years. That's another reason I really like them. I've been to all their farms. They do essential oils, therapeutic grade, and then really for the purpose of health. There's different grades. Like some companies will put essential oils in toothpaste or perfume or something, but these are really for the purpose of health. So their whole cultivation, planting, it has to be like soil that's virgin soil or, hadn't been used for 50 years or, so they're sort of from the seed in the ground to the distilling. But then also most of their supplements are infused with essential oils too. And they've done tests that showed that they were more bioavailable to the body. So they looked at, with and without. And then when could they see that in the bloodstream? So lots of stuff. I've been going to their conferences for all this time and listening to their scientists and all that stuff. So yeah, but my book actually, I feel like kind of breaks down all of this and how to, what the kind of core issues are and how to start. And, but also, I certainly would want to say food would be, pretty essential to make sure you're doing that as well as you can. Nobody's perfect. I don't expect anybody to be perfect. I'm going to go have a treat every now and then, but for the most part, yeah. So I just think you need just that kind of having that foundational company is really helpful. I have a private group that we have like 10 years of education in there. So, it's a conversation with somebody too. I like to just talk to them, see where they are. Maybe they've kind of done okay in this area, but this area over here's been neglected. Like maybe they are great in the skincare, but they're cleaning their house with yucky products or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question. That's kind of hard.
No, it does. And again, I've had lots of guests about this topic along the food lines. One of the best tips I got from one of the guests was, she said, if it's not growing in your area at that time, don't buy it.
Yeah, there's definitely something to that in your area. And yeah, at that time, eating seasonally. I mean, that's for sure.
And what was the other thing she said? Oh, if your grandmother wouldn't have served it, don't eat it.
I know it. I tell people, I remember when I would go see my grandparents, dessert was watermelon. It was like, and it was just, vegetables were big and, food grown in her area was big. And another thing I always think is I always ask myself, okay, what were they doing 100 years ago?
Right.
Just what were they doing 100 years ago? The processed food we have is just, we're Americans. We want to drive through. We want it fast. We're just, that's our mentality, which sort of goes to just give me a pill so I can feel better.
Right.
Sometimes healing from something is messy. Right. And we don't want it to be messy, but it is and can be. Sometimes you even can feel worse before you feel better because the body's just going through what it has to go through. But the body heals. That's the beautiful thing. Yeah. It's designed to. So we just have to get out of the way. And when I say get out of the way, that's part of what I mean. Get those chemicals out of your life. Just little by little start. That's one way to get that body in that space where it can do better.
And then do you recommend strictly organic foods?
I do as much as I can organic for sure. You think about the pesticides being sprayed on the food. There is that, you can Google the Dirty Dozen and it's what are the Dirty Dozen? And it'll show you, those the top 12 fruits and vegetables that you should buy organic. Like if you're going to buy anything organic, buy these organic. So again, people are like, well, organic doesn't really mean organic anymore. And so you do have to kind of sift through different terms, natural, pure, or, you got to read the ingredient list is really the truth on anything.
Why do you think it's so bad here? So like, I'm first generation American. My grandparents were in Germany. Like I would get up every morning with my grandmother. We would buy the rolls for the day because they wouldn't be good after, a couple hours. They're hard as a rock. And we would go to the butcher. And I have friends that have left the United States. They were, gluten sensitive, all these things. And, they go to France and they eat croissants
they can
every
eat better,
day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And What do you think?
Right
And
now
I'm not
I
getting
can tell.
political, but
No, that's okay. But, like America allows, I think the last time I looked, it was something like 1,600 chemicals in our foods, in our products that Europe does not allow.
well, look at the red dye. Finally.
That's huge.
Come on, finally.
Yeah.
Did we not all know? We've known about, like, I have friends with the kid when the kids were little. It's like, oh, no, they're not eating that. There's no way.
Right.
And I just like, is it the lobbies? It's just maddening.
Well, it is political. Let's not get political, but it is political because it all has to do with what's happening in Washington. What does the FDA allow? Big pharma, big ag, big food, those are all huge lobbies and huge, just kind of, I think things are starting to change, but
I hope so.
It really does go to that. I hate to say it. But that's the reason.
My daughter and I went to Aruba and we went to the grocery store, and Aruba is Dutch. And we were in like an Airbnb, a condo. So we got breakfast stuff, and the most delicious bread I have ever had in my life, like a multi-grain, it only lasted 2 days, in 2 days, but that's what it's supposed to do.
Right.
Right.
Like,
let's buy that and freeze it and just take it out one piece at a time.
Well, and what, like the blue zones. Okay. So some of my book it's a bunch of different studies. One was the blue zones, because I was looking at what are all the longevity factors that the blue zones plus all these other studies had in common. But those blue zones, those people, they live differently than us. Their mealtime was very social, and it was, everybody got together in the kitchen, or still gets together in the kitchen and chops up the food. And, it's just like the preparation is social. They hang out, and it's, so like a lot of time is spent procuring food, getting it home and then prepping it and then having that social dinner time. And we don't do that. We are moving so fast, with modernity. We're like the drive-through culture. And again, we want it now. And I get it. I'm a type A personality. I'm kind of always been moving pretty fast in life. And so that's just what we've turned into. And that's really not how, again, what was happening 100 years ago. Nobody was moving that fast. And it's like technology and modernity has moved so fast, but our physical bodies have not. We have not, what our bodies need, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, we haven't moved that fast. Really, what our body needs is probably what was happening 100 years ago, right? Like we just did things slower because we didn't have, iPhones and stuff.
Right. But they have all that in Europe.
Yes, they certainly do. They do, but they have those laws that, that's just, I've talked to tons of people I've been to Europe, but it's been a while actually, and who talk about eating the pasta and the bread and feeling great afterwards versus
even the wine.
Bloated.
We would have wine at lunch. We'd have wine at dinner. Didn't get drunk, didn't get hungover because it's pure. It's organic. It's,
Yes.
All right. If we were going to give people listening and watching one tip to start, what, besides buy your book, because I think there's a lot of great stuff in your book, and that'll all be in the show notes. But where would you start in your book? Where do you tell people to start?
Well, a couple of two things I'll say, or maybe three. Number one, environment triggers behavior. I say that all the time. So we want to set up our environment to trigger the behavior that we want. So if we want to eat more fruits and vegetables, we need to put them real pretty in glass dishes at eye level in our refrigerator. So it's the first thing we see when we open our door. If we want to walk and we keep not doing it, we need to put our tennis shoes out so we see them and just put them on. Once they're on, right, it's easier to walk out the front door, which then it's easier to walk down the block or whatever it is. So I love that, because that is truly what the whole Blue Zone situation was. Their environments, just by necessity, triggered their behavior. So our environments don't really do that, because our environments we've made for comfort. like the more inventions we have, the more comfort we have. And so, so that's one big thing to think about. You can't see it here, but I have a floor cushion that I put at my coffee table right there so that I'm more likely to just sit on the floor on the cushion. And so like in Japan, that's what they do, right? Their beds are on the floor, their cushions are on the floor. So they're getting down and getting up, getting down a lot, and it just helps with mobility and keeping the body moving. So that's one.
Fascinating, actually.
Yeah.
That's really fascinating, because that's a thing. Kristen Cofield, one of my guests, she does a lot of that on Instagram about how do you stay fit to have your grandkids. Exactly. And that's one of the things. You've got to be able to get down, get up while you're holding.
You do. So what can you do in your environment to make, I used to have forever, my mattress was on the floor for that reason. And it was just in the last couple of years that I got a bed frame because I wanted a pretty headboard, but I had them purposely make it as low to the ground as possible. So I got a headboard, but it's very low to the ground still, not as low, but, and then, I always also like to say our future is hidden in our daily routine. So like what we have to think about, and I think a lot of times we just don't, we just go day to day, live our life. But what do we want our life to look like in a year? Or in 5 years or 10 years? I think it's such a great thought to think about because, I remember following this lady about 10 years ago. I started following her and she was kind of an entrepreneurial person, but in the background of all of her stuff, she was very fit. She was very into fitness. I mean, really, like she and her husband would go on a trip. And the first thing is, you'd see it in her stories. The first thing they would do wherever they went was find a gym. Now, that's not always the first thing my husband and I do when we go on a trip, but I was just always thinking, God, I want to be more fit like she is. So like, what do you want? And that has to be in your daily routine, like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And that, hopefully the book helps with all that. But, so I think that's huge. And the other huge thing is we are the 5 people that we hang out with. Now, whether that's literally there's 5 people around you all the time, good friends, spouse, whatever, or whether that's listening to something online or, a lot, but we are influenced. And so we got to make sure we're not being, dragged down, but we're being uplifted in whatever we want to do, whatever our goals are.
Great advice. Really awesome. And I know your book is going to be amazing for everybody to read.
Well,
I'm going to check it out too. So everybody watching and listening, please share this episode. We all need to get a little healthier, a little more natural. I'm definitely on board with all of this. And it just makes sense. Like it just makes sense.
Logical. I'm always like, it's got to be logical.
It's logical.
It is.
Yeah. So Allison, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening or for watching this episode of Living Ageless and Bold. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit subscribe. And if you like the episode, I hope that you will give us a great review. You can also head over to livingagelessandbold.com and sign up for information, inspiration, and exclusive opportunities for us, women over 55. Thanks for listening. And remember, no matter what you do, keep living ageless and bold.